Hey guys, this is Ig with Ig Makes. This is a video about painting panel lines or washing technique. There are many different techniques. This is the one that I use on my models. Everything that you see on my website and a Facebook page was painted using this technique. What is washing? So washing is the process of applying special type of very thin watered down paint that, to the panel lines and to crevices that will add additional contrast. Your model will look much better when it's properly washed, or you can call that paneling process. Your eye likes the contrast, so let me demonstrate. This is one of my wargaming models. It was based roughly on a A10 Thunderbolt. So this particular model, it was primed in black, and then I applied a couple coats of green. And you could argue it looks pretty darn good as it is, without really anything else done to it. But let me demonstrate the difference between unwashed and washed model. So this is the panel. Disregard the fact that the cockpit is painted red. This is the model that was properly washed. I'm going to zoom in just to show you that. You can see that the panel lines and the crevices and inside angles are all a little bit darker. And that gives the model this finished look. It's almost slightly weathered look. So again, I'm going to switch to my camera here. So you see this is model that it's unwashed, and then the same model that has the wash applied. So washing, you're probably all familiar with the term weathering. So washing is in a way similar, but it will not age your model. It will add contrast to your model. It will not make it dirty, used, or weathered out. If you're first time hearing the term washing, what washing is not receiving your brand new model from whatever shop and then trying to wash it, or needing to wash it, or have anything to do with removing dirt or stickiness or any of that. If you ever receive 3D printed resin model and it's sticky, you need to contact the shop that sold you that. It's not, the model should never be sticky, and you should never need to wash the models. These models, when they come in a baggie, they're already pre-washed. You just need to remove any remaining supports and you're ready to go. What you need to know about washing, it's a very easy technique. It's surprisingly easy. That will make, as long as the model is made right. So for example, this model here, it's a C-Series cab over engine. It has a very deep panel lines, and this is required in order to be able to wash properly. This is also why I'm not a big fan of AI generated models or 3D scanned, because if you take the panel lines from the real world model and you shrink it down to N scale, these panel lines will pretty much disappear, or will be so tiny and microscopic you won't be able to get a wash in. Because I make all my models myself, I'm already thinking ahead. At some point I'll have to paint my models, and I make the reason why I make my panel lines very deep and easy to paint. So yeah, washing is very simple technique. It almost requires no effort. It's very quick. You don't need any specialized equipment for it, and will make your model take it the whole new level. So I want to say a couple words about the products that I'm using. I will be mostly using Army Painter Quick Shade. This is my by far favorite dark tone, which is essentially black. Then I have here also soft tone, which is medium brown, and the light tone, which is light brown. Choice of color depends on what the model color. So If you're using something like that, medium darkness color or brighter color, you might want to start with something like a soft tone or watered down dark tone. If you're painting brighter models like white cabs or yellow or orange, you might want to start with something even less intense. It also depends on the fact that you're going to, when painting a wargaming models, you want it to be punchy, so you probably go with a dark wash right away. I use Army Painter, but any wash will do. The reason why I prefer Army Painter, because the chemistry in this particular wash allows you to water it down, and we'll see in a couple of minutes why is that important. I have also here, for example, bottle of wash that I mixed myself. I'm not going to go into how to mix that up. It's very cheap and it doesn't take really all that much effort. The problem is that I like these washes are fairly cheap. This is about a $3 a bottle. It will last you for many, many models. I mean, you'll maybe use 2-3 drops to finish per model. So one bottle like this will last you months unless you paint a lot. I tried other brands of washes, Vallejo and Reaper, and I don't care about them because at least last time I tried a couple of years ago, they did not mix well with water. The pigment would separate from the wash and will pool in a certain areas of your model and leave other areas kind of gray and chalky. This particular wash, I don't know what they use, what kind of chemistry is inside, but you can thin it down to, you know, in up to 10 to 1, 10 drops of water to 1 drop of this thing, and it will still apply nicely and give you consistent coverage. Brushes, you want small brush for 2 reasons. Number one is that obviously you can't get into the panel lines if you have a large brush. The other reason is that you want brush to hold just a little amount of wash. You don't want this thing to be loaded. If you have a big brush and you dip it into the wash, it's going to, you know, the capillary action the moment you touch your model will just unload all that wash and it will mess up your model. So any brush will do. I prefer sable brushes simply because the natural hair in these brushes is much more durable and it's much more springy. It will never curl, and in general it will give you a more enjoyable painting experience. Model holder, when you paint model or wash or do anything, you know, you should never hold it in a hand like this. You're putting oil skins from your fingers on it. You know, your paint might not be still dry and you're going to rub it off, especially at the edges. So what I use a small, let me zoom out a little bit here. I use a small glass jar. Why glass? It's heavy, so it's very stable. It's not going to tip over, unlike those little $20, $30, you know, purpose-built made holders, model holders. This is actually very stable, and you know, you really have to knock it hard to tip it over. Also, you probably have these around the house. It doesn't cost you anything. The lid on this one is plastic, but it don't matter. I scuffed it up a little bit. And then I use, to attach the model, I will use the piece of a poster tack. And this is the best thing ever because it won't really leave any residue in your model and will hold it securely. So you just take a piece, you put it down like that. And then you would take, for example, this truck and squeeze it in, and there you go. So why is this also important to, useful to have a jar? When you do precision painting, like putting a brush into the panel lines, you want your hands to brace. If I was just to try to, you know, go in like this without bracing my hands are shaky. There's no way that I would be able to do this without bracing. With a jar, especially if you have a bigger hands like myself, you can hold in your left hand and then you can brace your right hand or your painting hand against the jar. And this will give you precision to go where you need to put that brush. It doesn't matter how shaky are your hands, as long as you're bracing your hands, you'll be all right. I'm also pressing my forearms against the edge of the table, and then my left hand that holds is at the table firmly, and then this one will press against the jar. So I'm basically triangulating my hands against the model holder, and this will give me the ability to be precise. Magnification, as you see in my little photo video in the upper left corner, I'm using these clip-ons magnifiers. They're 2 or 3x. These are cheap from the Amazon. There's nothing special about them. The reason why I like these, well, I have corrective glasses anyway, so you just find one of these that has the lenses that are far apart that will match your regular glasses. This way I keep my corrective lenses on and I get 2x magnification from these. You could use, I have a dedicated, it's like a visor with a headlight and you know, for the painting. The problem with that is that the distance between lenses is a little bit narrow. It's a great tool when you need quickly to look at something, check some detail, and then take it off. But if you're going to paint for a couple hours at a time, these will almost always give you less fatigue, and it's going to be a more comfortable experience than using a visor. Okay, so the washing process. So we have a wash here that I'm gonna, so you'll see a lot of advice out there that says, you know, just dip your brush into the wash and, you know, start slaughtering that all over your model. My technique actually is a little bit different. I like to thin this wash down. So I'm gonna put, say, 2 drops of that wash, and I'm gonna take few drops of distilled water. So why thin down wash? Why just not dip it? As a matter of fact, you can buy jars of wash out there that they say, just take your whole model, dip it in, and it's gonna look great. And probably would if you were painting some huge army, or you know, you had 200 models to wash and you just don't have time to do this. But if you want model to look the best, thin down your wash. The reason being is that as I go and I apply this wash around my model, I will make small mistakes. And those mistakes, when they're done with a thin down wash, will be less severe than if I was applying full 100% wash. Also, what happens when you create these little mistakes, as you can see on this, let me switch to the other camera. So you can see, hold on. So you will make little imperfections, but because these imperfections are done with a thin down wash, they will dry out as almost like a little weathering effect. Like you can see around this aileron here. You know, I did not really go super precise that wash. It spilled over a little bit, but it just dried up as a smudge. As a matter of fact, that wash was so thin, I probably went over this airplane several times, and that gave me this smoky look. If I went with 100% wash, every little mistake is going to look like a coffee stain. I'm sure you've seen that before on the models that you just dipped into the wash and then wash pulled up on the flat surfaces and it looked like a coffee stain. By applying thin down wash, you're avoiding that problem. So I'm going to go back on my overhead camera. And I'm going to start with this Wargaming model, and then we'll do same thing on an N-scale model and this APC. So the technique is that you load your brush very gently, and you don't want to load brush like this completely full, because the moment you touch something, it's going to unload too much. So have a clot, and I'm just gonna take a little bit of that wash. And then now I'm gonna go and start dabbing. So this is the key. Instead of dragging your brush around, just touch the panel lines and the wash will flow. The wash will flow by capillary action into the panel lines, like that. And yes, this might look like, well, you're barely applying any paint. That is correct. I am building this slowly. So I'm going to go a little bit faster here, just not to bore you with it, but essentially I just dab, 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 dab. When you're dragging airbrush, you're going to be squeezing and flattening the hair on a brush, and you will create more mess. So this is just, you just dab it like that. There you go. I can actually add a little bit more. It's a little bit too thin, and I don't want to make this 2-hour video. So this airplane has the all these panel lines around the nose. Again, I'm just dabbing. I'm trying to avoid touching flat surfaces. Anywhere where you have a crevice or a panel line, or where two angles meet, as I don't know what's the technical term, dihedral, where the two panels hit at an angle, that's where you touch with your brush. And just lightly load it and then do it again. Like these two little indentation around machine guns, for example, you can just flood the whole area. Like that. A little bit too much. You don't want your hair on your brush to be bulging. That means it's overloaded. There's a little bit panel line here on the body itself, on top of the airplane. And normally I would put a little bit of silver inside the engines, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna switch to the second camera. I'm gonna try to get light in. You can see the difference. It's still wet, of course, but this engine has so much more contrast. You can actually see the blades versus here. It looks very pale. And once that dries up, it's going to look even better. So I'm going to go and apply wash to the rest of it. And then when you do these details where it's not panel line, but you're applying wash between two flat surfaces, the dihedral area, go very easy on it. You want to avoid getting wash on the flat surfaces. And then on the back, I'm just going to be a little bit more. There you go. What's also useful when you do this technique, to have a secondary brush that is dry. So if you have a little spillage, you know, with a dry brush, you can just dab it off. All right. So that was the first layer. So now I would let this dry, and then I would go again and keep repeating this until I have desired effect. And I believe you can already tell this is much closer. Once the shine will dry, will go away once the wash dries, but you can tell it's already looking better. All right, so we'll take this off and we're gonna put this 8PC. This is another one of my wargaming models. So this also has quite a bit of panel lines. And you could also argue, well, that looks pretty darn good. I think I did a little bit dry brushing at the edges, but we want to add contrast. Another reason why I want to wash this model, I was not very precise painting the wheels on this side here. I don't know if you can tell, but you know, the green went a little bit too far out into the tire area. When you apply wash, these things will kind of blend together, and it will hide your small imperfections where the panels are passing to each other, the surfaces, angles, and the crevices. So I'm going to do the same thing again, lightly load the brush, and I'm going to start touching around panels and inside panel lines. I'm just dabbing, I'm not dragging. I want this to be as light as possible. Here are some cooling fins. I'm going to do a little bit more on top of that. Like that. And then with the wheels, I'm going to actually do a little bit more. Like this. I'm going to let the wash pool around the rim. And then on the top, I'm going to do just a half a model to show the difference. Like on this grill on the back, I'm just going to leave it like that and let it settle down. And then these panel lines on the top, again, I'm just going to be dabbing all the way around. Like that, and then on the front we have a couple of large panels. Okay. And then this is the area where I was talking about. So there's no panel line here or like around these hatches, but you have this very sharp angle that will attract and hold fluid. I think these are called dihedral angles. So I'm just going to go around and lightly dab these. And you might be thinking, well, I'm just going to use darker wash. Why just bother? I have to do this several times. If you do darker wash again and you make mistake, like I'm making plenty of mistakes as I'm recording this video, those mistakes will show like a coffee stain. It's very intense. It's going to be the edge of every stain is going to be very visible. By doing this with a watered down wash, your mistakes are much more forgiving. And then here on the back, because it's all in a dark area and it's not very visible, I'm just going to slop on a lot of wash. I'm going to leave the other side unwashed so you can see the difference once it's done. All right. And we're going to move on to our N scale model. So this is the model that we painted windshields in my last video. Let me actually get a second holder. All right. I'm going to mount it on. There you go. So with these N scale trucks, you're mostly looking at the panels. Panel lines around the door, around the hood on the front, inside a grill, and so on. So this one doesn't have so much to do, but you'll see it will look much better once it's done properly. So again, lightly loaded brush, and I'm just gonna go and gently touch that. As you can see, the wash it's being pulled off the brush and into the capillary action, just pulls the liquid straight into the panel line. And I'm gonna do it here. It's actually a similar technique the way we painted the windshields in my last video. And at least in case of N-scale models, I try not to do much of washing, like around this fender. I'm probably not gonna put a wash. I'm gonna put really, really thin down wash. I don't want too much contrast here. I just want contrast where it matters, in a deep recessed area. So on a grill on the front, I'm gonna flood this thing. Like that. And then on this side, again, just dab it. Light load, and watch what happens. I just touch it. And that thing is loaded. All right, let's do this front grill, the trim. I'm gonna gently tap all the way around. Now say if you painted these lights in silver color, you know, you can't get really perfect coverage, or you know, you might get a dab of silver on a cab green paint or vice versa. So once you have your silver bits done, you can go back with a wash and just dab around this light, and you can tell this left light now looks better than the right one. It has a little bit more contrast. It's more visible. I hope you can tell the difference. So I'm gonna do, again, you would do this after you paint light silver or whatever is your preferred color. And there's a couple more panel lines right here on the front, like here, and here, like here, and there. All right, that already looks better. All right, let's go back to our little jet, and you can see it already looks better. It's still a bit wet, so you can use hair dryer, like that, and just accelerate the process. And I know I said I'm out of jars here. I don't want to interrupt the video, so I'm just going to hold my hand, and I'm going to go back and do this again. Just flood all these panel lines with more wash. Oh, a little bit too much. You don't want those hair bulging. See, I just barely dip the brush and I just touch it, and that transfers the fluid right there. I'm gonna again flood these two. I'm gonna go and dab around ailerons. And then engine covers. This is much easier to do when you don't have a camera over your head. other side. And around the tail surfaces, elevators. I'm going to touch this top panels. And then I can go back and touch the nose area. It has a lot of panel lines, and that was done on purpose so you can bring contrast. Like that. All right. So now let's compare that to the one that's already painted. And you can tell, except for the shine, they're getting there. So this model obviously has a cockpit painted, and there's some silver bits on it. And I might have highlighted the edges. The leading edge on the wing is a little bit highlighted. But by just doing 2 layers of tin wash, we added so much contrast and so much more visual interest to the model. We went from that plain looking airbrushed look to something, you know, that's been through the battle and back. I think it looks much better. And then we'll go back to the APC. And this is the side where we apply the wash. It's still a little bit wet, but you see the wheels look better. There's more contrast around the rims. The tires look a little bit darker. And now we're going to look at the side that didn't have wash. And that looks very kind of pale. There's no contrast. You see the wheels are very bright, and there's really no depth to it, no contrast compared to this side. And the panel lines are also much more pronounced here than they are on this side. You can barely tell there are any panel lines there. And then the top can probably use a couple more layers. And again, I've made more than a couple mistakes here, and that's okay because we use tin wash. All those mistakes will dry up as a very, very bright layers. You won't see the coffee stains, and it's not going to be obvious. Eventually, you will redo these panels like 2-3 more times. These small mistakes will add up, and you'll get this type of smoky look where you can see it on the camera. It's a collection of mistakes that ends up to being this nice almost transition between dark panel lines and the green body. I think it looks pretty cool for the wargaming model. And then our N-scale truck, you can tell it has more of a, you can see better the front grille, the lights, and you know the door is now more defined. The other area where I would put a wash, this is a little bit more tricky. Once you paint these positional lights on a cab or whatever they're called, you would take the tiniest little amount of wash. And again, you do this after you painted them silver and orange. And I would just go around and dab a little bit around them, just to give them a little bit of a separation from the, there you go. So now this is wet, but you can already see that better because of the wash. And typically when I paint these also with a silver, because they're so tiny, I'll get sometimes a little bit silver paint, get into the edge between cab and the light. By applying the wash, the wash will actually hide it out, and you won't see it. It will look much better. it's much easier than be trying to take the original green paint and try to fix your mistakes. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. Washing, it's not about cleaning your model, it's adding contrast. It's like weathering, but without aging your model. It just requires very simple wash that you can even mix yourself, or just buy a bottle for $3 and you'll have it for a very long time. It's a low effort and high return. You know, you can even, if you don't have airbrush and you're just putting down base coats by regular traditional brush, washing will bring your models to the whole new level. It's really, you should try that, give it a try, and you won't be disappointed. It doesn't require some special, you know, skills or anything like that. It's basically just dabbing. If you have a shaky hands, get a bottle. Don't do the pill bottle. The pill bottles, I don't have a pill bottle at me, but you know, they're tiny. And when you have a small pill bottle, you're gripping it with your hand. And if you do this for like an hour and a half, you're going to start cramping. Get yourself proper, you know, big jar, maybe even bigger than this. Like, you know, if you had something like this, that will really allow your hand to rest on it and to have a better precision. I have shaky hands, and there's no way in hell that I would be able to paint without these jars. Get proper brace. Proper models to be able to apply this technique. Again, I think this 3D scanned or AI made probably doesn't have very good panel lines. The panel lines have to be made deep and fairly wide, out of scale, to be honest, in order for this technique to work. If your model surface is flat, it has no features, you basically have to paint on panel lines, and that's, while possible, it's going to be way more difficult. All right. So that's for the models. And again, when done properly, it looks really great. I'm going to pause the video and grab a couple of my models to show you exactly what the washing does. So here are a few more of my mostly wargaming models. So let me switch to the secondary camera maybe. So this was washed extensively. Yeah, this camera is actually not very good. You see the panel lines are much darker than the rest of the body, and that gives your eye more contrast to grab on. For example, this little buggy has extensive wash. I didn't spend hours trying to, you know, get these gradients. It was just airbrushed in 2 basic colors and then washed in all these little holes and panel lines. Here's another one. It's the same tank, but you can tell the panel lines are way deeper and more pronounced. And now I'm going to show you a model that was not washed, and you can tell it looks very pale. Or maybe when I applied wash. No, I don't think there's a wash. But anyway, the difference between washed and unwashed model. This, I think, looks much better. Here's another one. This is APC, and it's just like the one that we washed. So the difference between, okay, this one has obviously camouflage, so that looks kind of cool, but actually this side here. The washed model that has nice contrast, and then unwashed model that just looks very plain. Here's another one. This is MLRS, and this model was not washed, and you see it looks very, very plain compared to, say, something that was washed. And I have a brand new in a bag. This just has a base coat, oops, and the tail is broken. Not much for that. But the model was not washed, and it looks very plain and flat. And then there's this properly washed model. You see the panel lines, there's a lot of little mistakes that I made, but they all blend together because I used very thin wash. The result is pretty cool. If I went straight out of the bottle with unmodified wash, you know, that was just straight wash, all these little mistakes would look like a coffee stains. Let's see, anything else I can show you out of my box. Here's the little hovercraft. And that was also heavily washed. This skirt will look very boring if it wasn't for the wash. And I sure as heck did not, you know, use 10 different grays to make it pop. It was just a couple of layers with an airbrush and then wash in all the crevices for that final contrast. And there's another one. This is APC, just my basic APC. It has cool camouflage, but it doesn't have wash, so it looks very boring. And I don't think I have any good examples else to show you, so we are going to call this done video. All right, guys, so let me know if you have any questions down in the comments. Again, this is something you can do if you are one of my trained guys and you're painting N scale. I see a lot of guys that paint their trucks and they don't go beyond just the basic base coats. Try these techniques. It will cost you $3 in a bottle of wash, and I guarantee your models will look awesome. All right, till next video, take care.